What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. How are you, sweetie?
I am amazing, Richard. So we got together recently and did the thing that I think kind of helped solidify our bromance back in the day. We made sweet, sweet game and love together. And by game and love, I don't mean like love in a sexual sense. I mean in the sense where we rolled some dice.
Yeah, and not those one dice that you would get at Spencer's that had like the lick my nipple.
Yeah.
You remember those dice?
Yeah. I brought those the first time to game day and everybody looked at me weird. I'm like, what? Thought we were getting weird here.
You said six-sider, and this is all I got in my house. Have you ever used them? No, I just took them out of the box, but I was gonna.
So, Richard, back in the day, we got together, we played some gaming, and we've never really talked about it, kind of our history of like just getting together, doing this fun thing that we enjoy. I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to sit and kind of talk about some of the history that we've had to game, because I don't even know if you and I have really talked about your full history of it. But I had stopped for like 3 or 4 years, and we're talking tabletop gaming. We're talking RPGs. We're talking like D&D, Pathfinder.
On a table with books and pencils and notebook paper.
So to give a little history, so when I was growing up, I didn't really know anybody that played D&D or anything like that, but that movie with Tom Hanks had came out like in the mid to late 80s.
Oh, yes. Was it? Fuck, what was it called?
Was it something Mazes
and Monsters.
Yeah, Mazes and Monsters. It was just like, it was basically like taking like D&D and like giving it like, this is Satan. If your kids are playing this, they're going to go into a sewer and they're going to beat the shit out of a homeless person with a stick and kill them.
Which recently, like everything about what started that whole scare and everything, basically everything that preceded the whole it's the tool of the devil thing, it's all been debunked. Like I've just seen articles in the last like year that, well, because they would talk about like, there was a kid that committed suicide and, you know, like
there's a big like D&D like scare, like PSA type thing.
Exactly. And the whole thing was predicated on complete bullshit.
It was by some other company. It was by Milton Bradley.
It was, basically it was like it was this detective that like had this like hunch kind of gut feeling that it had something to do with this game, but it turned out it really had absolutely nothing to do with the game itself.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's and so when I was growing up, I remember I was probably like 9 or 10. I was with my dad and he was with a couple of his friends, and their friends were like really big into church and stuff like that. Not like creepy, but they're a little bit more like going out. Like they were trying to talk us, like, hey, you guys should go to church too. My dad's like, nah, no thanks. I'd rather play D&D. But
that's exactly what my dad did.
My dad's not a D&D player at all, but I remember them like somehow got on this topic and I couldn't tell what they were talking about. And it wasn't until years later I kind of put the pieces together because they're talking about like, oh yeah, that's the game of the devil. You know, I know there's a kid that went to a school that our kids go to that went into a thing dressed up as a warrior with a sword, and they were fighting down there and they're beating the crap out of each other, and one of the kids died. It's like, oh, well, I'm never letting my kid roll dice ever.
Yeah. And then you found out that the whole story was bullshit.
Yeah. And so it was, you know, flash forward about 10 years, you know, you and I had been friends for probably about 6 to 8 months. And you asked me, he's like, hey, would you ever be interested in playing? I don't know if you said RPG or tabletop or gaming. And at that point, I think I associated gaming specifically because gaming's kind of got a lot of different terms. Like there's, you know, it's used by people who do like casinos, like gambling. Mm-hmm. It's used by people who play video games, and it's used by tabletop. So gaming to me is always more tabletop. That's kind of what it got set in my mind. But when we first started talking about it, I thought you were talking about actual video games, like handheld video games. I was like, well, I play a little bit. But then you started explaining to me like what it was. And even then I was a little bit like, oh, like, is that too nerdy? Is that too dorky?
And then I was like, here, put on this cloak.
Yeah. Well, no, because you're like, oh, no, it's like 6 of us. We go to my friend's base.
Yeah.
And we
here, hold this knife. You're new, so you get to carve the initials into someone else's chest.
All right, it takes a blood sacrifice, cut your hand.
Bring a goat. Bring a goat to gaming. You're the new guy. It's your turn to bring a goat.
But I felt like what I want to try to get with this is like, if you know a group of people that you're friends with that do this, give this a shot because it is a lot of fun. Because I still had to try to like I had to give myself an ulterior motive to why I wanted to go. So to me, it wasn't like, because I had, the girlfriend at the time, like, yeah, I'm going to go play D&D. And you instantly get this look like, what? You're like, really? You're going to go play that? Like,
to be fair, that happens with every girl.
Yeah, it's true. But then, like, after, so many years of having fun with it, I like any girl I was with, I'm like, hey, I'm going back home and playing D&D. Like, really? Yeah, I am for 12, 14 plus hours.
Yeah, and it's going to be amazing.
It's part of my life. At least I don't go and get, Swedish hand massages.
It's this or strip clubs. Which do you want?
Yeah. That's a good point. It's a lot cheaper, too.
No. Well, I mean, depends on what books you buy.
True. But so you talked me into going, and I had to come up with an ulterior motive before I went. So I told everybody, I'm like, yeah, I'm going because, I'm taking this creative writing class, and this might help me with my creative writing abilities. And you even said, like, yeah, it should help. Like, you're building a character and doing these things.
No, what I said is you should lie and say you're going to go do something extremely manly, so that way you don't come across as that kind of guy. Like, I'm going to go...
We're going to go mudding for 27 hours.
We're going to go driving through mud pits, and then we're going to eat raw meat. Just raw hamburger, just handfuls of raw hamburger. We're just going to chew on it.
And then probably have the poops for like 7 days because you're not supposed to eat raw hamburger. But we're men.
What are you bringing dice for? That's so we can throw them at people we don't like.
If they look like nerds, we're like, hey, nerd, here's your dice. I was like the same one you had last time. Gotta go. So what was do you recall the first recollection of, because I remember where we were. We're at our restaurant. We were on the non-smoking side looking at the, I think it was like the Frank Thomas. I remember specifically the Frank Thomas picture was there. And I remember us talking about, like, this is where he gave me the whole, like, spiel of, you need to come to game day this, 2 Saturdays from today and come and hang out with us.
I don't remember what it was that actually piqued your interest, though. I can't remember if it was something or if I just foisted it upon you. Like, you know what you should do?
Kinda, yeah. And I think it was at a point, too, where I didn't get invited to a lot of stuff. So I was like, well, like, maybe I should do this. Like, this might be fun.
Mom, I made friends.
But so do you remember why you invited me specifically? Was it just because you thought I'd enjoy it, or do you think I would get along with the group? Or
I think it was a combination of, like, I thought you'd get along with the group fine, and also I thought you'd like it. Well, actually, it wasn't really so much that I thought you'd like it. It was more in my head, like, well, why wouldn't anybody like this? Why wouldn't everybody like this? And also because we needed another player.
And scratch that. I think the first time I ever played was actually at your house, wasn't it? Oh. Because you ran that little campaign like your birthday weekend.
Oh, yeah. I think that was
my first introduction.
Because I was like, oh, let's learn to crawl before we walk.
Yeah, and that was a little overwhelming because it was like 10 people. I think you created the character for me, and I didn't really quite understand. I think that might have made me not want to go the first couple months after to our buddy's house. Uh-huh. But then finally he told me, like, well, we're not playing that. We're playing Star Wars. We're playing a Star Wars RPG campaign. I'm like, well, I could get behind that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. I vaguely remember Star Wars was your first kind of like foray into the group. Because I guess it's because I figured Star Wars was a lot more accessible to.
And I wasn't really, like, I hadn't seen like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, but I've seen Star Wars. So I kind of knew what Dungeons and Dragons were about. Like, I knew about dragons and things like that, but it really wasn't until I played Oblivion that like all the stuff kind of started like the dots began to connect.
Maybe that was it. Maybe it was because I thought because you were really into Oblivion and you were like, I love this game. I love playing this game. I love doing shit. And I'm like, well, I was like, you could do this. And it's basically the same thing. And that way you're playing with other people.
Because your birthday is March, April?
It's in May. But
I was close.
So close. Only a month off. Even though I know your birthday's in January, but I mean, that's neither here nor there.
But yeah, so we would have played D&D in May at your place. and I would have played Oblivion during the summer. So yeah, it would have been that fall when I started my sophomore year of school, and that's when you invited me back to play because it again, like it just all kind of made sense of like leveling your characters up and doing all this other stuff. So
you have that combination of an open world progression of your character. But with a tabletop game, you get the added benefit of being with a group of people, and it's much more of a social experience.
Yeah, it really is. And so I know a lot of groups are different. Some groups do like once a week for a couple hours. Some do, multiple times a week. I know somebody that does like 3 different game sessions a week.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that do that. They do like 2 or 3 different sessions a week for like an hour or 2 at a time, which is great. Don't get me wrong. And I think if the group that we usually play with, I think if everybody had much more conducive schedules, I mean, that would probably be something we might do. Like, just do like maybe 2 hours once a week.
Yeah, but the difficult thing for me with that is, because I think some of us are spread out, but I'm a couple hours away.
Right.
So, but we've always done just one full day, like 10:30, 11 o'clock till who knows
till 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, but it used to be when we were doing Star Wars, when I first got in there, we would get there, I think, like at 10. We'd BS for a couple hours, start playing, and we sometimes didn't finish till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I remember it was when I lived in my dorm room, and it'd just be like a hike back to my dorm room at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and people would be coming in drunk, and you'd be like, girls would be all hanging over dudes.
And you got books and dice in your hand.
Like, hey guys, what are you doing? You guys want to see my character?
I don't think she's feeling well.
Don't worry, I've got a healing potion right here.
You should take her to bed to get some rest. That's my plan. Oh, well, that's good. Nothing like a good friend. Hey, honey.
Night, guys. But yeah, I like, and so I think I had a group of friends. We tried to do like once a month for about 4 or 5 hours, but I feel like it's just, I love the whole like day experience of it. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it's been probably 3 to 4 years since I've played. I think I got back into it like in 2014, 2015 ish, and then just kind of fell out of it. And Dave kept me on the list of like, hey, we're doing game day on this day. We're doing game day on this day. And finally, my kid got to an age. I'm like, hey, I can go back, leave the kid with the grandparents. I can go play. And I got to play last month, and all like the joys came back, like all like the good, like, like this is like so much fun, like the BSing of it with the guys, getting to see you like that was like the other great thing is like getting to spend like 4 hours with you in person. Cause I don't know if a lot of people know this. Rich and I aren't in the same room when we do this show. We're doing it via Skype, and it's better than what we used to do just over the phone. But getting that experience to be there, and rolling dice with your buddy is just so much fun.
And you hold hands under the table so nobody else sees.
Yeah, and then when they call you out on it, you just still hold hands above the table.
Yeah.
And be like, we got something to tell you guys. Like, we already knew.
Don't deny us. But we are as God made us.
But I still think I prefer like that full day experience. One, because it's easier to get everybody together, I think. And 2, it kind of, if you're having a shorter game session, like an hour or 2, I think it can cut into like the BSing time, which I've always sold D&D like game days as it's like 85% BS, 10% rolling up characters, and then the rest of it's actual gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it in the years that I've played, I will say that when you're either running a game or playing a game, you have to understand. And this is when people talk about like D&D helps develop social skills, this is a direct, example. So I've played with groups that are very heavy into like a role playing aspect, where they, speak in like, their character's voice, and they try to carry like their weight and cadence with that kind of, with what they feel like their character should act like. And I've been with groups that are very hack and slashy, where they don't really care about the role playing so much. They just want to, get to a fight and do the fight and do cool shit during the fight. Mm-hmm. And then I've been with groups that don't really care so much about the role playing or the fighting. They just want the loot, and I've been with groups that, like to figure out a mystery, solve a mystery, figure out, understand the story that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I've been with all those, and I will say this, like all of those play styles are fine, but you will find a general, I will say that I think you find a general consensus among a group of people as to what they're looking to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people aren't even really totally big into playing the game. I mean, they sit there, they roll the dice, they enjoy themselves, and some people just like, hanging out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had that with the group I played with here. There's definitely some people like each time they'd be like, okay, so like, hey, Steve, it's your turn. Go. Okay. What dice do I roll again? You rolled the D20. Which one's that? It's that one. Okay. Rolled it. What'd you get? 15. Did you add your bonuses? Which bonuses do I add again? And they're just there to have fun. They don't care that much. But
sure.
I mean, that's really the theme that I love about it is, it's really kind of like a boys' night out type thing.
Very much so.
Going to the bar, getting drunk. You go to a buddy's house and drink a little bit, watch some movies, hang out, and just kind of relax and have a good time.
Yeah,
and a very safe good time. It's like you said, it's like, we're not going to a strip club. There's no girls. It's just a bunch of dudes throwing some dice around.
And not to say that the game is completely, is male dominated. I've gamed with a ton. Played games with a ton of women, and they do well, and they, and I will say that it seems, most of the women I've played with are geared. You'll find their styles almost as varied, in terms of what they're looking to get out of it. Some do like just getting the loot. Some like, the experience of the story, shit like that.
Did any of your girls show any interest in playing or?
Yeah, I've played with all my kids. I will say that my youngest two are probably more into it.
Gotcha.
I think I caught the oldest too late. She hit that angsty stage before.
Yeah, I feel like that's, it's starting to become a little bit more popular with like things like World of Warcraft and stuff like that being more in the popular mainstream, that you can kind of say like, well, this is very similar to those. It's just pen and paper. So it's
and then you're like, this came first, god damn it.
Yeah, no joke, right? And I mean, there's things out there like PC Gen, which makes it so much easier to jump right in. You don't have to scour the books to figure it out. You can download a program called PC Gen and kind of build your character that way. So you don't have to know all the minutia of the characters.
That's true when it comes to which I find so funny because now you have these character creating programs that help you figure out the math and everything of when you roll and what you add after you roll. And it's funny to me because, the older systems, the math was far more complicated and you didn't have, a character generator that you did on your computer.
Now, and going back, so like the first time I played, because I was kind of thrown into it. I think, didn't you and your dad kind of play together first? So it was kind of a smaller group?
My dad played when it first came out. So, let's see, the game released, I think, in 74. So my dad was in junior high school. And so he was like right in that sweet spot. So he started playing when it released. And so like when I grew up, I had books in my house. So 6-year-old me is like, hey, what's this? Flip through.
Holy crap, monsters and dragons. Dad, this is amazing.
Yeah. So he
leans over and he pulls out this dusty book and goes, hands it to you. Today you are my son.
He still, I would say he still played pretty hardcore when I was young. And then he kind of stopped when I got a little bit older. But I think when I was about like 12 or 13, about like 12 or 13, then I had some friends that had also seen the books like in the house and and read through them, and they were like, we want to try this. And so my dad actually sat and like ran my first game.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That was good times.
So did he have a dedicated group he played with, or was it?
He had a couple. He had a few that he generally would play with. But he honestly he preferred being a DM. He had, I mean, he had a character and he played and everything, but he preferred to be the one running the game because it gave him I always felt like he was a writer that never, that never stepped out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and this was his chance to, it was his chance to tell stories, which is exactly what he did. I've never seen him create an event. I've never seen him run like a published adventure. Everything every time he ever ran a game, it was always in his head.
Did you ever get a good chance to talk to him about like how he created his characters and things like that? Because that's always seems like the bit difficult part. Like coming up with kind of a storyline and things like that, you can kind of build that, but getting the NPCs and getting everything to tie together can be the really time consuming part.
I did, and honestly, it just came from the fact that he read constantly, constantly. He would crank through a 600-700 page book in a week. And that was, and he did that
book or like just a book,
like a novel, like like every fantasy novel under the sun. I mean, he would just crank through like a novel every like week or 10 days. He was always constantly reading a book. And
how do you process his time to do that? Was he just a quick reader, or
he was a very quick reader? Okay. Yeah. He was a very quick reader.
I'm super envious of that because I'm not a very quick reader. It takes me like a lot of time to process. Like I probably can get like in a regular sized book, maybe 2 pages a minute, maybe 4 pages a minute or something. But those people, I can just skim through those and get everything. That's like a superpower I wish I had.
Yeah, and so because of that, a lot of his ideas and for characters and or stories, he would kind of pull little bits from the umpteen million books he's read over the course of the last 20 years. That's
awesome. Do you have any of his old campaigns anywhere?
He never wrote anything down.
Really?
It was all in his head.
So did he just improv like did he go, I don't know if you've ever got a chance to talk to him about it, but did he just go in with okay, we're playing today. Okay, I've got an idea. Let's go. Yeah. Here's the characters from last time and improv the whole thing.
That's about 90% of what he did.
Wow.
I would say that, he might have like a map here or there, but it was just like a general map that he would draw just to kind of give you a sense of place, give you a sense of where you were in place. But 90% of the time, he never wrote anything down. It was all just in his head.
So did he roll characters, or did he just kind of know character stats and stuff too when he played?
Yeah. And so if he had an idea of what monsters he wanted to use, he would just bookmark pages in the monster manual, or he would, bookmark general stats and then just kind of just pull it all together in his head and then just go.
That's pretty impressive.
And so he'd always he would always so he'd run games for me, he'd run game for his friends. A lot of times he would go to conventions and run games. He got an award once.
That's cool.
At the local gaming convention for best homebrew
campaign.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. It kind of stinks he didn't have them written down somewhere or something though. That'd be kind of cool to go back and play one of your old man's campaigns.
I know, right? I just need to go read 50 fantasy novels, and then I guess I could do.
But my first, the first probably 2 or 3 years of me gaming was just you DMing. Because we played Star Wars first, which was a D20 style game. So D20 is basically, it's the dice, the D20. So if you don't know, that's one of the typical systems that you start with D20s that tells you kind of what other dice you may need to roll after that. So with you had a whole Star Wars semi homebrew, but you kind of built it off of an existing campaign too.
Yeah. Well, so it was kind of broken up into 2 parts. There was a story that I did myself that took your character from first level to about 5th or 6th. And so then after that, I found an existing campaign that was supposed to take you from 1 to 20. And so then I took that and just kind of adapted it around the characters that you already had. So that way you didn't have to make new ones.
Yeah. I think I might have joined right as you guys were starting the second piece of that. I think you guys were already like
no, it was like right at the tail end of the first. It was like right at the tail end of the first one.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And into the second.
I think nobody had Jedi levels yet.
Right.
Or maybe they had one level Jedi.
Right. Because I set the campaign in between episodes 3 and 4. And so, the rule that I put out was if you want to be a Jedi for right now, you need to pick something else. Or no, it wasn't that. It was, you needed to be trained so you needed to find a master to train you in Jedi levels. So I think I put like a cap on how high a level Jedi you could be until you found, somebody to teach you and to take the next step. So I think I capped you guys at a certain level. So then if you got more experience to level up, you'd have to level up on something else.
Which is kind of cool, because otherwise it'd be like, I'm 20 levels Jedi.
Right.
That's the problem with those. Because we've talked about trying to play another one, and I always seemed like it'd be cool to play in the Star Wars universe in non-Jedi. But inevitably, you want to become a Jedi. That's what you'd want to do.
That's what everybody wants to fucking throw a lightsaber around. I mean, if I was playing, that's what I'd want to do.
I still feel like, so I've played in a couple of different games, but that Star Wars campaign was my first one. It's kind of like the first time, is the best time. But I feel like that was one of the greatest campaigns we've done, because it had everything. It had, dice rolling, it had role playing, it had story, it had all kinds of things. My first character I named him Centron. I named a lot of my guys after baseball players, like with weird last names.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why I did it first, because I have one named Rowand.
I mean, of course I know that, because I know so much about baseball.
Yeah, you're a Blue Sox fan, right? That's right, Richard. I love the Blue Sox. Go Chicago Blue Sox.
Go Chicago Red Bears.
But, it was great because in that game, as you're playing, if you do something bad, like if you do like Force Lightning, which is a dark side, you get dark side point.
Yeah.
And so my character kept doing all these things. And like we'd be in a dark room and all of a sudden there'd be like, Force Lightning. And everybody'd be like, well, who did that? And it's cool with that kind of situation because you can metagame pretty easy because everybody knows I did it. But their characters have to like not know that.
Sure.
But I kind of want to know, like, what's your remembrance of that whole campaign from about that time where I started and we were.
I remember I took your character. It was mine.
My character.
I took him away. And then I made him the principal villain of the campaign.
He became, and I didn't play in this, but he became Darth Sin.
Yeah, because I read the name and I was like, that's a weird name. Who has that name? I'll change it.
Well, it's Centron, so you had to just cut the end off.
Yeah. And I thought I was so fucking clever.
It was pretty clever. Because I think somebody probably said, like, oh my God, that's Darth Centron. You're like, no, it's Darth Sin. But what, I don't know how many people are listening that have ever played, but, whenever you're playing, I mean, some groups are probably better than ours, but ours is always like, well, who is that guy? What's that guy's name? I don't remember. What was the bad guy's name? I don't remember. Okay. You run into blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, who's that? That's the main villain. Oh, shit. Okay, I rolled an attack. With this campaign, everybody knew who we're going after. We're going after a fallen, friend, a fallen compadre.
Yeah.
We're going after Darth Sin.
Yeah.
And it led all the way up to the end of that campaign, too.
Yep, got all the way to the very end. And at the very end, one of the things that I liked is because I felt like every character got to have a hero moment throughout that campaign.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like every character had like a moment where like they were the ones that fucking saved the day.
Yep. There was a part where we're fighting Darth Vader and one of the guys saved, I guess like a couple of us were like, we're going to sacrifice ourselves by going up this tower.
Yeah.
And Darth Vader was trying to pull it down, but then we got in the ship just in time to get up there and save him. Oh yeah, that's so much fun. That's one of those like
somebody blew up a big giant ship all by themselves.
Yeah. I was when I first started playing that, it's very intimidating to play a game for the first time too, especially if people have already started. Because I was very nervous that like I was going to screw something up, and so I was the gunner on one of the ships, and I shot one of the TIE fighters or something, that blew it up, and and of course I'd seen Star Wars, but I couldn't remember everything, and I'm like, oh, I got one. And one of the guys playing with us without missing a beat just goes, "Don't get cocky, kid."
And then you were like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so didn't mean that. And then they had to he's like, "Do I get extra XP for movie quotes?" I'm like, I thought he was like asking a question, like, "Yeah, like movie quotes."
What do you mean movie quotes?
Like the back of a Volkswagen? Yeah,
he just
XP.
insulted me.
And then there was also where they're like, oh, because we had a Wookiee on our team or in our group, and so every time we went in somewhere, we had to do the fake prisoner exchange. And I never understood, like, okay, where are they coming up with this idea?
Yeah.
And then I watched the movies I was older to actually pay attention. I'm like, as I'm sitting there watching it, like, it's like, oh, okay, this is why we do that.
Well, that makes sense. I see where the ideas come from.
Don't get cocky, kids. Oh, I get it. That guy's funny. Go in the next
20 minutes later, you just laugh. So the Star Wars campaign, that went a while, because that was that was like 10 adventures.
Yeah.
Well, plus all the other stuff. So yeah, I think it went on like right around like 18 months.
At least, yeah. Because I mean, I think I started my sophomore year of college. I think that one we're wrapping up around my senior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think you started running a D&D campaign. And I think a couple other people jumped on to run some book campaigns.
Yeah, because I had with that level cap thing, it gave me an idea for running a. Actually, no, it wasn't that. Well, it was a combination of. So I started running a D&D campaign where everybody picked non-player character classes.
Yeah.
So instead of when you started first level, you weren't a fighter, you were a commoner, or you were a commoner. What was it? Commoner. You could be like a city guard, and you could have like those kind of stats, but you weren't like an heroic character. So that idea I actually pulled. I know this is sad to say, but I pulled it from the Star Wars campaign a little bit, where I was like, okay, you're going to do this, and then you're going to go and get training, and then you get to be a fighter, a wizard, a cleric or whatever. So you would start there and then go to there. But the other place I pulled the idea from, I'm sad to say, was Harry Potter.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, I think I like that idea. I think I might have came in. I missed a gaming session or two where you guys were the lower level characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when we got in there, I can remember there's a bridge in our training that once we defeated it, anytime anybody from that group was together and they said, "Remember the Iron Sword," we would get extra XP. And there's only 2 of us that survived up to that point. It was me and Dave's character.
Yeah,
so we'd be sitting there with like all these new characters, and we'd say, "Remember the Iron Sword."
Because basically I had all that as like your exams. So that bridge battle, it was basically you were on a bridge, and it was like it was like the equivalent of horde mode in a video game, where it was just like a constant wave after wave of enemies. And when you got to when you cleared, a certain number of waves, then you got this ability.
And that was because that was based off of like some event that had happened in history, right?
Yeah, there was I guess the bridge was like the site of some like great battle, and so it has like a resonating magical effect where if you do the same thing that these heroes did at this bridge, then you would say, "Remember the Iron Sword," and it gave you it gave you some sort of buff.
I think it was like a +1 hit point per person or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I couldn't even remember.
And so whenever it was just 2 of us, we'd say that, and everybody'd be like, "What's that mean?" Like, don't worry about it. Only a couple of us are in the know.
Everybody else is dead.
Yeah, basically. So what's I'm trying to think of anything great else to talk about that. So I know, a couple other people played like book campaigns. What are your thoughts on like homebrew? Essentially, is kind of what you and I have done.
I've done both.
Where you kind of do homebrew is where you basically build the whole thing from scratch.
Yeah.
And then you have campaigns that are published that the companies like Paizo or Wizards of the Coast that do D&D, they kind of publish those and you use them. Which do you prefer? Like, which do you prefer to play? Which do you prefer to run?
I honestly use a combination of both. I use kind of this hybrid of both, where I'll take either I'll have like an overarching story, like an overarching campaign. What I ideally do is I come up with an overarching campaign story where X thing happens, and then you're going to go on this big long journey, and then at the end you do Y. But everything that happens between X and Y, I'll either come up with myself or I'll pull like pre-published adventures and then adapt it.
I gotcha. So
and it's kind of like what I did with the Star Wars campaign, where I took this whole published campaign and then just kind of tweaked it.
And kind of, does that make the work a little bit less too on your end to make like a full homebrew? Because it's still usually just more as an inspiration than what it actually textually says.
It helps me in a couple ways. Number one, I'm horrible at maps. I cannot do maps of dungeons or anything to save my life. I'm terrible at creating maps. And so one of the reasons that I like to take published adventures is because there's pre-done maps.
Yeah.
Usually with, and there's been times where I've taken, pre-published adventures, I've bought them or whatever just for the maps. Like I'll just take the maps and just, drop them in somewhere just so, because you do need some sort of map to give your characters, especially during things like combat, to give your characters a sense of where they are and where they can go and what they can do.
And I'm similar to you. If I'm bad and I draw it, I'm like, all right, you guys walk in here. And it's like, it's 5 foot by 5 foot. It's like, oh, crap.
Yeah. I'm terrible at creating maps. And so one big reason that I pull from existing adventures is because there's pre-done maps. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. The other thing is that a lot of pre-published adventures will have like a cool gimmick or a cool tweak or something like that I like. And so, I might take, it either might inspire me to come up with something similar, or I might just take that little piece and drop it into something.
Yeah, no, that's what. So I've got a pretty big campaign that I started like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was building it towards a campaign that they've built. So like it's all homebrew except for like kind of the final level of this kind of arc. Mm-hmm. But I love the same thing. Like I was getting Pathfinder's comic books that they're putting out for a bit.
No, I gotcha.
Every single one of those had a map in it. So I would get the comic for the week, open it up, be like, can I use this map in my campaign? Yeah, I can. And so I would build my, interactions or combats around that map.
Yeah.
Because it may be like, oh, well, this is a field in some desert. I'm like, oh, yeah, but it's got this cool little design here. It's got this thing. This will work perfect for this encounter that I'm planning.
Right.
And it made it so much easier.
With me, when it comes to coming up with it, this is basically what I do when it comes to an adventure. And this is something that I actually did take from watching my dad run games, where I will write down like a general outline of story, and then I will pull certain maps depending on what I'm going to use. But when it comes to monster statistics or character statistics or anything, I don't mess with. I might bookmark some pages for myself in the monster manual or something like that, just so I have some reference. But I don't come up with, monster stats on my own or character stats on my own for like non-player characters, and the reason I do that is because the whole purpose of monsters and NPCs is to serve the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want somebody to be a bit more of a challenge, you're going to fudge his stats in order to make him a challenge.
Yeah.
And same thing for, if something's going to be easy, like make it easy. And if something's going to be hard, you make it hard. The whole purpose, the whole point of playing Dungeons and Dragons is for the players to exist and go through a story. And your job as the person running the game is to give them a story that they're excited about and that they like doing.
Yeah, I think when you get some people I hope I'm good at DMing. I've only done it a little bit, but I really enjoy it because it's kind of like what you're saying with your dad. Like, it's an ability to write and tell a story, and you're getting 10 interactions with that or 8 interactions with that each time you get to play.
Yeah,
and being able to guide them through this and let them kind of make the story what they want to make it. But you have some DMs and GMs that. And DM, I guess we should explain this. DM is Dungeon Master. It's the person who runs the game. Paizo, which
really
is
okay, Shawn. We're about 47 minutes into this. If we're at the point where we need to explain what a dungeon, like the people that need explaining what a Dungeon Master is, they're gone. They're true. Not here anymore. It's just us. It's just you and me at this point.
But you get some of those guys who they feel like they're playing against the characters. And I feel like that makes for a very combative gameplay.
Yeah, it's a bit more adversarial, but I will say that some players like that because they like things to exist in a very structured world, so that way they know exactly what they can do and what they're capable of doing. Some players do like that rigid structure because basically they know where they stand in it.
I guess, does it make it feel like their characters are more at risk? Because I know whenever we've played, we've had characters that have died, but that's usually a pretty big stretch. Like if a character dies, we try to figure out okay, well, crap, did we mess something up? Did we look at something wrong? What can we do to maybe fudge to get them back? Because, you look at those Star Wars characters. We played 16, 17 months with them.
That's true, but I will say that I think that if it comes down to if a character's gonna, whenever I've ran a game, a character doesn't die unless they want to, or they've just done something. Either they've done something stupid, or they've done something understanding what the consequences of that are.
Sacrificing themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they do something full well and knowing that there's a fairly probable chance that they're not going to make it, and they do it anyway, then yeah, there's a chance they're going to die.
But that's a worthy thing, though, and that's what makes the gaming memorable too. Is it's oh, do you remember when our character? And you usually remember their name too. It'd be you remember when Lionheart Jones III ran into the fire of the dragon and allowed us all to escape, and then we found Lionheart the Dragon Slayer 6, his cousin. Gee, that was great.
That was awesome. I remember.
So in all the years you've played, so I've done Star Wars, I've done Pathfinder, D&D, I just started doing Starfinder. Of those kind of settings, which one would you say is your favorite?
That one's hard. You're asking me out of all the tabletop RPGs I've played, what's my favorite? I really like Shadowrun. I wish the rule system was a lot better, but I can't think of a way for it to be better.
Does Wizard own that? Or?
No. It was originally owned by FASA, this company called FASA, but they got bought out by I think now the RPG version is run by a studio called Catalyst Games.
Okay.
But and D&D is the same way. D&D was originally owned by TSR, and then they got bought by Wizards of the Coast in the late 90s. But yeah, I don't know. Out of all this, so I love Shadowrun, but the rule system is so cumbersome that it makes playing the game somewhat difficult. But I can't think of a better way to do it with the way that's set up. I would say that D&D is probably the most accessible.
Yeah.
I think that, I think you can do a lot. Well, I mean, if you're asking between D&D and Pathfinder, or if we're going, fantasy versus science fiction, I lean more towards fantasy. But I think that might just be because I've done that more.
Yeah. That's kind of the go-to. And I think that's maybe why I swing more towards like we've started playing Starfinder, which is Paizo's like Pathfinder in space kind of thing.
Yeah, but yeah.
I really did. It's not quite Shadowrunny, but it's probably the closest thing that I've played. And I really dig it. Like I like the idea of, all these, monsters and things like that, but you have guns and other kind of like ships and stuff like that you get to play with. That's kind of why I like Star Wars, because you had blaster pistols and lightsabers and all these really cool things.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, and I always, early on with fantasy games, I kind of hurt myself too, because I always try to jump in feet first with like a wizard, which if you're new to it, that's such a difficult type of character to play.
Well, I think it depends on your play style.
Well, I think you have to like really research like the spells and how to use them and understand how you can use them.
Yeah,
like,
I would agree with that.
I was expecting of like, oh, I want to shoot this thing that does damage. It's like, oh, well, that doesn't do damage. That does this. You're like, oh, well, that sucks. Well, I've got 4 magic missiles I can use each day.
Yeah, I could see that. I found just so you know, I did find the article on the quote D&D scare. So in 1979, 16-year-old child prodigy James Dallas Elliott III disappeared from his room at Michigan State University. A private investigator thought that D&D was the cause of his disappearance. In truth, he was suffering from depression and drug addiction and had gone into hiding in the utility tunnels under the university. During an episode of self-harm, during an episode of Self-Harm, the well-publicized episode referred to as the Seam Tunnel Incident prompted a number of works of fiction, including the novel Mazes and Monsters and the 1982 Tom Hanks film of the same name.
And he goes down, that's in that movie, he goes down and beats a homeless guy to death, doesn't he?
Something like that, yeah. Egbert later died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in 1980. Despite the evidence regarding his mental health problems, some activists believed Egbert's suicide was caused by D&D.
Which, I mean, you think now, like, I don't know if it's as much today, but, 10, 15 years ago, there's lots of talk of video games kind of doing that type of thing.
I would say back in the 80s, like, I don't know what happened, but it seemed like in the 80s, like, there was like this cult thing, you know what I mean? Like, there's cults out there and you're going to get recruited into a cult, and, the influence of Satan and D&D and satanic cults. And there was there was a satanic cult in every dark corner of every room in the 1980s.
To be fair, you had the, Charles Manson was, 5-10 years before that. You had the cult that drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh, Jonestown?
Yeah, and you had the one that was the Comet people in the 90s, but they were around all throughout that time period, so.
Yeah, but none of them had anything to do with Satan. What's that? Like in the 80s, it was like the satanic, they were satanic cults. They weren't just like, cults of personality because, Manson was crazy, but somehow made sense to some people. And the same thing with Jonestown. Like in the 80s, you had this, like, it was almost like this fever, like hysteria over the influence of satanic cults.
I wonder why that was.
It was basically like, little seed stories here and there that just, and books that got released that just kind of built this fever pitch thing.
Do you think that was kind of like, TV was becoming more nationwide, so there's more like push to get like these eyeballs on these interesting stories, kind of like if it bleeds, it leads type of thing?
Yeah. I think that probably did have something to do with it.
Because it's like today, like you always hear like people, you might mention like shark attacks, and people are like, oh my gosh, there's so many more shark attacks now. It's like, well, no, they just report every single one. Like somebody gets like barely nibbled on, and they're like, oh my God, shark attack in the harbor. It's like, no, the shark like scraped up against a guy. because he was trying to dry hump it and take a picture.
Yep. But that still hasn't stopped you from not wanting to go in the water.
Oh, God, yeah, no. I was in the water recently, Richard, and I was looking for sharks. I saw dolphins, and they're like gay sharks. They make me nervous.
Death by snoo. But I'll tell you what's funny is where you're seeing a big surge in new players, or where you're getting a lot of new players from, is prisons.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like gaming groups in prisons is becoming like super popular. I've seen a couple documentaries about a lot of prisoners that get out and then they go find or start up their own gaming group because they played it all through prison and loved it so much.
Oh, that's cool.
At first it was viewed highly suspect because it was like guards thought it was gambling because they're sitting around rolling dice.
Yeah, I could see it. But so they have books and stuff in there, or they just make it up as they go?
No, they have books.
No, that's cool.
I mean, it's all books and pen and paper and stuff. And I mean, shit, if I was doing 3 to 5 and I don't have fuck else going on,
well, it's like that, read or work out.
Right. And this way you get to sit and like hang out with quote unquote friends. So
I guess the thing we can kind of end up on. So the gaming group itself, I feel like we're kind of in a situation where we've got a buddy who has a whole basement. Like, I feel like we're spoiled when it comes to gaming groups because our buddy has a basement completely decked out, ready for gaming. He's got a huge table. Yeah. He's got, he's always had like 2 or 3 TVs running movies. He's got a big projector screen now. Like, since I've been gone and come back, he's got a nice little bar set up. And again, it's a good group of people to go to. I know some people that just go to like friends' houses and they're playing on a kitchen table, which is fun. You've got gaming stores you can go to. Check out your local gaming store. They've got where you can get the books. They'll have people there. But to me, it is key to find like the right group for you. If you go into a group and it's not the right group, it's not going to be a good experience. That's what always has made me nervous about going to like these gaming stores, because I'm worried I'm going to run into the type of people that I won't have fun gaming with. But that doesn't mean you can't try somebody else as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, don't let that deter you. I think, you can always like play with a group for a couple hours. Cause I will say this, I will say a majority, like all the other groups that I've played with would not do like 12-hour marathon sessions. It's usually like, a couple hours a night, maybe once a week. So, I mean, you hang out with a couple, you let's say, you get invited into a new group or something like that. Like, yeah, go for it. Like, go ahead and give it a shot. And maybe, but I will, put out the caveat that, maybe not every group is for you, but don't let a bad experience dissuade you, because I think that good experiences can most definitely outweigh the bad. You just need to find the right people.
Yeah, I think every group's probably like a snowflake. They're all very, very different.
Oh, yeah.
So the only thing I was going to ask you, of your groups, how many different groups have you played with? I've only had like 2, maybe 3 different ones.
I don't know. That's a lot. Because I started playing when I was like 13. So 13, I'm 36 now. So 20 years. And I never really, there was maybe like a few years, like late teens. No, a lot. More than 5. Less than 20, maybe.
So how about
this is the most consistent group? I will say that this is the group I've played with the most consistently.
Yeah, because it's been going on. I don't know how long you guys start. I guess that's where we'll kind of bookend this. So I've been playing with this group since 2005, so 13 years. How long have you been playing with those guys? I guess to tag into that, how did you get started with this group?
One of them was my teacher. It was a teacher of mine in high school, and he wouldn't let me play with this group until I graduated. So I graduated high school in 2000 and then went to his house like the month after.
Oh, awesome. So you knew he played and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So So of the group, I know it was him, you, a couple other people. How many people were
Are
there
still there?
Yeah. Well, how many people were there before I got, like that had left before I got there?
Not many. It was a lot smaller. There was, I mean, shit. There was one night that I was running that goddamn Star Wars campaign, and the group got to like 10 fucking players, and that's a fucking bear. On average, it's usually been 6.
Gotcha.
Well, I'd say lately there has been nights where it got kind of lean to like 4, but on average, I'd say it was about like 5 to 7.
Gotcha. I always feel like 4 to 6 is like the ideal for me when I'm
4 to 6 is always the sweet spot.
Because if you get any more than that, it gets to be just.
It gets a little cumbersome.
Yeah, but you get going around and it's like, okay, roll your dice. And by the time you get back to them, they're interacting or doing something different. The person you get to at the end is doing something different. It's hard to keep people's attention when you got a 10-minute battle that takes an hour. But but Richard, I guess before we close this out, I honestly just want to say thank you for introducing me to this awesome game. Without you, I would have never tried it. And actually, without you too, some of the guys back here that I've played with would never have tried it. And I was excited about getting back into it, got me all the warm fuzzies, and I've been spending some time getting ready to play a campaign and run a campaign. I'm hoping this October I can do a zombie game, just a one-night type thing.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So we're going to talk about that at next game day.
Yeah.
But with that, do you have any Richard's closing thoughts you'd like to throw in before we tidy up this D&D episode?
I'm sure that everybody that's still listening at this point has already played and, enjoys the fuck of it. So I will say this, go find yourself. You go find your Shawn.
Yeah, good call.
Everybody go find your Shawn and bring him in, and maybe they'll like it and maybe they won't, but you never know unless you try.
Yep.
And then you'll start your own podcast and then you won't listen to us anymore.
All right, well, let me do a little bit of dungeon keeping before we get out of here. Visit our website, we're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, we're at languageofbro. Email us at eatthebeaver at languageofbromance.com. Check out the LOB Army intelligence reports, like us on Facebook, and we just want to keep pushing this podcast to new and bigger heights. So please help us by spreading the bromance by using your word of mouth and going out and recruiting people for the LOB Army. By getting someone you know to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.
And when you're there, you can throw up a rating and a review and let us know how we're doing. And not only that, but just putting the rating and the review on there, it helps keep us relevant in things like search engines and all that weird computer stuff that I slightly understand.
It helps us level up into the podcast atmosphere.
Oh, see, that was so much more clever.
And remember, you can always find us as part of the Dungeon Crawling Podcast Network, the Pod Bros Network.
The
epic level podcast network site on the internet.
Oh my God, my brain's failing me.
And if you want to, make sure you can join our LB Army by, like our LB Army member Wendy, by going to our Patreon accounts, www.patreon.com/languageofbromance. All right. Well, is there anything before I close her out?
That's it.
All right. Well, that's all the Bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And I say we eat the beaver.
Make a roll to eat the beaver.
Ah, Nat.
Oh.
Engineered the fuck out of that.